Welcome back into Rover Sports here on ESPN 610 AM here in Philly. We got Chad Withrow joining us from the SEC tournament. And Chad, how has your week been watching basketball in Nashville? Is this one of your favorite weeks being a Nashville resident?
Yeah, it's great. Every year we look forward to it. And I'd like to say that we see 14 teams and their fan bases converge on Nashville, but quite honestly, we see one fan base converge on Nashville. It becomes Lexington South every year with Kentucky fans. It's a home game for Kentucky in every game they play. It's incredible to see their level of intensity and commitment for basketball that, quite frankly, don't see any other program in the SEC. It's all football everywhere else. And there are SEC basketball fans, obviously, but nothing to the level of Kentucky. So it's really cool to see all the blue in Nashville. And we always have a good time broadcasting our show from down there. And I think the basketball's improved from a year ago. The games haven't been overly competitive, but overall, the SEC is a better league than it was last year.
And you can find Chad on 104.5 The Zone in Nashville. He does the midday show there. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of the SEC tournament, I wanted to ask you kind of about your memories watching March Madness and watching the first Thursday and Friday games as a kid, because you were probably like myself, loved doing the brackets, and in grade school and even in high school, the games would start at noon. Did you find ways to stream games when you were in high school, or did you get to skip school? I mean, how did you handle that adversity as a college basketball fan?
Well, it's funny, when I was in school, I'm guessing you might be a little bit younger than me, but we couldn't stream anything. There really wasn't internet when I was in school, so it was a treat when your teacher would let you watch on television whatever game was going on. And a lot of teachers, but maybe I wasn't at the best high school around academically, because a lot of our teachers weren't as into teaching as much as they were showing us college basketball games. So that was always a highlight on that Thursday and Friday afternoon. And, I know a lot of other people probably like this as well. Nowadays, you can go the day after the selection Sunday and print off the brackets and have them all nice and neat. I would actually sit in front of my television as a kid and with a pencil have a bracket printed out and write in. Try to go as fast as I can. This is before DVR. I couldn't pause anything. I'm trying to write in every game that's on there. That was kind of a game of mine, too, to actually have a handwritten bracket that I had ready to go and make my picks in the bracket for Thursday and Friday's games. Mm-hmm. I think Thursday and Friday of the NCAA tournament are two of the best days of the sports year. I put it right up there with the first day of college football on that Saturday. But I think that Thursday and Friday of the tournament, it's a national holiday. It's so much fun. It's the single best sporting event in the country. I think when you look at the NCAA tournament as a whole and the weeks that it happens, especially that first Thursday and Friday, single best thing going in sports in the country. I love it. It's bedlam
because, and you don't get much sleep on Thursday night either, because the West Coast games are usually fantastic, and they are till midnight. But so basically, you still found a way to get a bracket, right? It's not like if you didn't write down the bracket that you would not be able to find one, right?
Oh no, yeah, I'm watching it on television. I'm watching Greg Gumbel, who's still doing it growing up, and I'm just writing down what they're saying as it goes. So I have my bracket, it's handwritten. There's something about it still to this day that I like to kind of write everything out in my own writing on a bracket. But yeah, certainly I was able to follow a bracket the whole time.
I wanted to ask you, growing up and being a fan of March Madness and the NCAA tournament, I have some teams that were like my Cinderella teams that I actually picked on my bracket that were able to have a huge upset. I wanted to ask you, which team was your favorite Cinderella team that you kind of discovered before the national guys kind of discovered this team? And is there a player that growing up you remember? Because for me, it was like Kevin Pittsnagel and that John Beeline West Virginia team that would just gun threes. And which college basketball player would you like to see come back, if you will? And what team was your favorite Cinderella team growing up, if you can name one?
I remember two teams and two names that really jumped to me as a kid, and I was a teenager at this point, but the current coach at Vanderbilt, Bryce Drew, and Valparaiso, I remember I picked them, and I believe it was a 14-3 when they upset Ansu Cisse, who was a great player at Ole Miss, and a really good Ole Miss team in the first round, of course, that memorable shot you see every March when they're rolling through the highlights of tournament years past, where Bryce Drew knocks down that three at the buzzer and is embraced by his dad, Homer Drew. Of course, I didn't know at the time Bryce Drew would one day be the head coach at Vanderbilt. He's done a great job in year one here in Nashville. So I remember Bryce Drew. I remember picking that game and thinking I was pretty smart because I picked Valpo in the upset in that game. Another player that I remember was Harold Arsenault from Weber State, who was, I believe, the leading scorer in the country at the time, who had a big 2 games in the tournament. And I think Weber State got to the Sweet 16 that year, if I'm not mistaken. But growing up, there's always those great stories. I remember Richmond over Syracuse in a big upset. I'm still waiting for that day that we see a 16 over a 1. I do believe that it will happen at some point because there's more and more parity in college basketball. But you always remember the 15s over 2s also.
Oh,
every year. So that's some of the most fun year in and year out.
Yeah, my father went to Lehigh, so he was so excited when they finally beat Duke. And then if you remember, Albany almost beat Connecticut. That game was in Philadelphia, the 16. But it's going to happen eventually. Since we're talking about the bracket and we're talking about like how you would fill out your bracket, what is your strategy when you look at the field, when you get the bracket? Do you look at head coaches? Do you look at point guard play? How do you decide which teams are going to be your Final Four and which teams are the safer picks when you fill out your bracket?
I'm a guy that I think it kind of changes year to year, honestly. It just depends on the trends of the game that year, because there are some years where you value low post play a lot more. If a team's got a dominant big man and it's going to be a tough matchup for a lot of different teams, then maybe you go with them. And then the next year, maybe, guard play and spreading it out is the way to go. So you pick the teams that can gun it from deep. Other years, you're afraid of the teams that gun it from deep, because what if they get cold in a neutral court and suddenly they can't hit and they're bounced in the first round? So I really don't have a rhyme or reason to how I pick it. I like to pick upsets. I think everyone does. It's fun to do that. I don't like to go with chalk the entire way. But inevitably, I'm always going to end up with 1, 2, or 3 1 seeds, maybe a 2 seed or 2. Maybe a 4 or 5 seed sneaks in there to the Final Four. But for the most part, I've got the higher seeds in the Final Four at the end.
Chad, I wanted to ask you some questions local to SEC basketball. You look at Rick Barnes, and I think it was a very nice hire for Tennessee to get Rick Barnes from Texas. Although Rick Barnes, even at Texas, he hasn't gone to a Sweet 16 since 2007. Do you think that Rick Barnes' ceiling is still high, being a coach of the Tennessee Vols? And do you see special things from this Tennessee program? I know they might miss out on the tournament this year, but do you see Rick kind of turning the corner there in Tennessee? And do you think that this team could be in the NCAA tournament, knocking on the second weekend's door in a couple of years?
Yeah, honestly, I think the expectation next year should be NCAA tournament after this year's performance. They were picked second to last in the SEC. They finished 9th out of 14, so they did exceed expectations there. Played well enough to get themselves in the tournament mix earlier. They bottomed out late. I think a lot of it's just being a very young team, and they get pretty much everyone back a year from now. So I think the expectation should be to get to the NCAA tournament. As far as Rick Barnes, I wasn't thrilled with the hire initially because of that rap at Texas that, he's a guy who gets NBA players and great talent but doesn't do well in the NCAA tournament. But you really look at Rick Barnes' history. I mean, I'll ask you guys, what was Texas basketball before Rick Barnes got there? Tom Penders went to a couple of tournaments. I mean, they were nothing. So Rick Barnes built the expectation level at Texas because he recruited at a level that they had never recruited at before, and he got to, 17 out of 18 years. He went to the NCAA tournament in one stretch. So I think he was a victim of his own success a little bit at Texas. And you look throughout his career, he's been a program builder everywhere. He got Providence to the NCAA tournament when they were down. He got Clemson to the NCAA tournament when they were down. He did good work at George Mason before those 2 stops. Then went to Texas and did great work. So it really shouldn't come as a surprise that he's done better than expected so far at Tennessee. I think the surprising part of it is he's done it with under-the-radar recruits. Grant Williams, who is first-team All-SEC freshman, looks like he's going to be a force for years to come. He picked Tennessee over Yale. That was his other big offer, was an Ivy League program. And now he's lighting up the SEC as a 6'5" post player. So Rick Barnes certainly has an eye for talent. And I think the surprising part is that he's done it at Tennessee with some under-the-radar guys. And while they weren't very good at the end of this season, they really weren't very good at the start of the year either. They had that great stretch in the middle of conference play. I really think it's a team that'll be in the tournament a year from now.
Speaking of kind of surprising when you look at the SEC landscape and SEC basketball is Bruce Pearl at Auburn. And I remember a couple of years ago this lasting image of Bruce Pearl getting to the plains of Auburn and fans literally waiting for his airplane to touch down in Auburn as he was finally back in the college basketball landscape. And you looked at Auburn, even on Tuesday night, they had such a disappointing loss to Missouri. They're going to miss the tournament again. Are you kind of a little bit stunned that Bruce Pearl isn't really turning the corner at Auburn yet? And what do you make of Bruce Pearl and kind of the disappointment that Auburn's been the last couple of years?
I'm shocked that Auburn hasn't been better. I thought when they hired him, I'm thinking, oh, he's going to immediately recruit really well, and Auburn will be in the tournament in year two. They'll have one down year, then he'll have them in the tournament. Because remember, he never missed the tournament at Tennessee. From year one, they were a 2 seed in his first year, and they weren't expected to even challenge for the tournament in year one. He got him as a 2 seed in the tournament. So he was great at Tennessee. I'll say this for Bruce Pearl. I think that we undervalue his assistant coaches at the time at Tennessee. Steve Forbes is now the head coach at ETSU. And oh, by the way, watch out for ETSU in the tournament. They're a team capable of winning in the first round against a really good team. He's done a great job there, a great X's and O's coach. Jason Shea, same thing, great scouting guy, was really good at coming up with game plans for Bruce Pearl. I think you now see that, his son is on that staff. The staff just isn't as good under Bruce Pearl at Auburn, and you kind of see that, just how good those guys were with him at Tennessee at the time. And he caught lightning in a bottle at Tennessee. I still think he's a really good coach, and I still think that better days are ahead for Auburn. But to answer your question, I'm shocked that it's been this bad so far at Auburn. And he's recruited well. It's not like they don't have talent. They just have not been able to put it together.
You look at the Blue Bloods of the SEC this year, and it's kind of a resurgence for Mike White and the Florida Gators, and also Kentucky with Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox. I mean, they're a team that is thinking Final Four as well. If I were going to tell you to pick one Final Four team out of Florida and Kentucky, who do you trust more to make it to Phoenix this year in the Final Four?
It's Kentucky. I mean, if I had to pick one of those two, it's definitely Kentucky, just with all that NBA talent, with De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Bam Adebayo. I'm going with Kentucky if I had to pick one team to go to the Final Four. I think Florida's very good, but I think losing Igbunu was a big blow to them. So I like Florida. I like sort of their moxie. I really like Mike White. But if I'm picking one team, it's absolutely Kentucky. And guys, I'm going to go on a limb right now. I think Florida gets beat tonight. I think Vanderbilt is going to win the SEC tournament. The way they've been playing, they've got a great route to do it. And I think they get past Florida tonight, so I think it's going to knock their seed down a level.
And even over Kentucky, you heard it here first. He's taking the doors to win the tournament. Going
out on a limb. I've doubted Vandy earlier in the year. They're going to get to the tournament with 15 losses if they don't win the SEC tournament. I mean, that's the crazy stat. It'll be the first team ever to get that large with 15 losses.
Yeah.
But that's going to happen. They're going to be in the tournament. But they're playing so well. I think they upset Florida. They beat them for a third time this year. They just beat them last weekend in Nashville. I think they get the Gators again tonight, and I think they're going to surprise people and get to Sunday and give Kentucky a game there.
We're going to keep an eye on it, Chad. It's Chad Withrow from 104.5 The Zone. Looking forward to talking to you soon about the NFL draft and your tight ends that have been quiet in free agency so far. And we'll talk soon about NFL, but great insight on college basketball, Chad, and always a pleasure talking with you.
Absolutely. If anybody's listening and they bet on Vandy tonight and they don't win, please don't blame me. So I'll just as easily back out of that prediction if Florida wins tonight. How about that?
Okay. Chad Withrow, 104.5 The Zone, joining us on Rover Sports.